Okay, let's jump right into this. So, I'm going to be kind of doing a rework of my network plan and my home lab environment. Um, kind of lost track of things after the move, but we're all set up now and we have some fun new toys to play with. So, I kind of want to go over the order I'm going to be kind of doing things in here for the configuration side of things. Currently, I have it all set up in a pseudo state that would let me operate and stay secure, but it's not exactly how I want it to be. So we're going to go a little bit deeper from there. Starting out, the first thing I already have somewhat configured is a program called IT Flow. So IT Flow is similar to your generic documentation platforms you'd use at a standard MSP or within your own environment, such as IT Glue. There are other great programs as well for it. I know Snipe IT was one I was kind of bouncing in between. IT Flow ended up being much better, super easy to host, super easy to secure, and makes things very nice and organized. So I put a little note next to it that's going to be our documentation platform. So as we go through each of these lists and as we set everything up, we're going to be documenting the usernames, the passwords, the MAC address, any notable information that can be used to troubleshoot down the road. The first video and first setup I'm going to plan on doing is going through our modems. So we will have two modems in the environment. We're going to have a fiber modem that's primary on site, as well as a cellular modem that I'm looking at going with Verizon for still, as they have the cheapest option. The second thing we're going to look at setting up here is going to be the firewall, which is mostly going to be a high level setup at first. It's going to be a lot of the VLANs, the inter VLAN traffic, interfaces, and any known reservations we already have, as well as going through and as we set everything else up, we're going to be setting up their reservations as well. I don't think I'm going to have the server do DHCP. I think I'm going to have a secondary setup for DHCP just in case the firewall has any kinds of issues. But as of right now, I'm planning on leaving all of that on the firewall. So for power constraints, I can shut the server down when I need to, and I don't have to leave that running all the time just to get a connection outbound. For the third step here, we're going to be going through and doing our switches. We do have three currently, three Aruba Instant On switches, 1930 series, two 8-port PoE, one 24-port, not PoE currently, but I think we're going to end up replacing it and getting a PoE switch in there. Four, we're going to be going through and doing our watt boxes. Not sure if I'm going to redo that video as the configuration for that was pretty great, but I have some notes here of some things I want to go through and do. So, including setting up individual port resets as well as labeling the ports, and we'll get deeper into that once we go. So, we will have three watt boxes and three switches. We're going to have an IDF1 and an IDF2 on top of our MDF. Um, so one is going to be the barn that is closest to the primary building here, and one is going to be in the far building, which is hopefully going to be a fiber connection between them all. We still have to run the line for that and find some SFP ports that'll work well with the switches without hopefully going with the brand preferred ones, as those are much more expensive and I'd like to avoid that in my home lab if possible. Number five here, we're going to set up our camera system. I did go ahead and purchase the Reolink camera systems and have thoroughly enjoyed them so far in testing, but we have a lot of configuration that needs to go into them, and we'll have some fun doing that, including properly running these cables. As currently, it could be much nicer to say the least. Next setup, we're going to go through and do a very high level initial setup for a Synology station that we're going to be running, and that is going to include our backup software as well and security system on that. There's a lot of applications and stuff that we're going to look into with the Synology that we're going to end up doing, but I feel like it is a much more advanced video than is needed for this section right here. 7 is going to jump right into the backup software, where I felt like that needed to be next. So as we onboard our devices, we can get them backing up to the Synology. That way, if something happens or we lose any of them, we don't have too much data loss. As well as the remote access software. I'm still kind of trying to decide what to go between for that, whether I'm just going to RDP around the network, which I'm not really a fan of, or set up a control server or a team viewer server. We'll cross that bridge when we get there or as we get closer to it. But remote access software will be next. So, again, as we onboard devices, can just keep installing that as we go. And falling right in line with that, step 9 is going to be our security agent. I am going to stick with trying to set up Wazoo for that. I've been really impressed with all of their stuff, and the fact it can be locally hosted, I think, is going to be kind of fun to set up. So we're gonna stick with that, and that'll be getting installed as we go. For step 10 here, I've went ahead and put the network racks. So 2 of them we're going to build ourselves using some spare parts I have. And because they're going to be so small in the 2 IDFs, I think we can make it look kind of nice as well. So if it is out and about, it doesn't doesn't bring down the aesthetic too much. As far as the MDF goes, we'll just be doing a cleanup for that one, as it is monstrosity, and there's not much we can do to help the aesthetic of that. For step 11 here, and we'll just do 11 through 17, 18. We're going to be onboarding our current devices in the networks and getting them set up with the software they need, the onboarding they need, so we can remotely manage them all from the desktop here, the primary computer. Um, and as well as by then, I'm hoping to have a list of all of the software I want to go through. We have a list of some here and what I'm planning on putting it on, as well as the servers that it'll go to and the OS that I plan on running on some of these. But there's a lot of stuff to go through and not a lot of time to go through it all. And it's not fully organized yet either. But we'll be looking at setting up what our hosts are going to be for internal host, external host, and go from there. I think that's all I wanted to go over in this video currently. Um, is just a really high level overview of what we're going to do with everything as we go. I think the next video you'll see will probably be starting off with the modems. I think I'll save the video on IT flow for after the fact, but we'll be using IT flow as we set up the modems. So for now, I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.